Are you gonna be a good girl? Gonna behave? Nom 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 nom. Are you gonna be a good girl and lay on the couch like you usually do while I record? Yeah. Good girl. Hello, lovely people of the internet, and welcome to episode 16 of the NovelTea Knitting Podcast. I am your host, Emma, here to talk to you about all things knitting, crafty, basically anything cozy that takes my fancy. I'm going to try to keep today's episode just a little bit shorter, and that is just because I don't have a lot of editing time right now. I am currently in the middle of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. That means that I have to write almost 2,000 words every single day, and that takes me anywhere between 2 and 4 hours, and that really cuts into the editing time. So we're going to speed things up, go straight into what I am drinking today, which is this winter spice herbal tea from Twinings. This is one of my absolute favorites, and they only sell it at Christmas time. And so the last time it was on sale, so last year, I actually bought like 5 boxes of it so that I would not run out until it was for sale again. It's basically just a chamomile tea with some very Christmassy flavors in it, like cinnamon and cardamom. But I'm obsessed with this. This is typically what I drink either when I need to relax a little bit or right before bed. And yes, I did finally manage to get another fall mug. This one says all the fall feels. I got another one that matches this that says cool days and cozy nights. So cheers. So first up on the docket today, I do not have with me because I finished it, and that is the Gramps Cardigan that I made for my niece Gwen, and also an Antler Toque that I made to go with it. So obviously I've been updating you guys here and there about the progress with the Gramps Cardigan. I did finish it about a week ago now, which was just in time because I delivered it to Taylor when we had family pictures, where I got to participate in family pictures because I'm a godmother, which, I mean, just the best feeling. I just love being part of their family. It makes me so happy. Anyway, so I finished the Gramps Cardigan. I think it is definitely too big for Gwen right now, and also Taylor had already picked out like a completely different outfit, so I didn't expect her to use that in the pictures or anything. I just wanted to finish it so that maybe she can use it later in the year, or she might even use it and just have her baby in an oversized cardigan. I have no idea. But I did also finish in the same yarn that I was using the Antler Toque, also from Tin Can Knits. That one was really, really fun. I really love working cables. I just think that they're so beautiful. I just have a little bit of trouble when it's like a big project and I have to do the cables because it just feels like the cables make everything take so much longer. That being said, just yesterday, I actually started learning from one of my knitting club friends how to knit cables without a cable needle, which I think will speed up the process a lot. And it's not for like really big cables, but things that are like 4, I think, these cables were 4-stitch cables, I'm pretty sure, and so I could have done it without a cable needle if I had just asked Heather ahead of time to show me how to do it. I'm sure I hope that I have been putting up pictures of those as I've been talking about them. They were really, really fun, really nice to have something that I could actually complete relatively easily. I've been working on a lot of really big projects lately, so it was really nice to be able to have a couple of small projects that I got done within a few days or a week or so. So speaking of big projects that I have been trying really hard to get done, I have most of a quilt done. Yeah. So in the last 3 weeks, my mom and I have gotten together a couple of times to work on these. The first time we managed to only get the quilts sandwiched. So we used like a fabric adhesive Elena's head might be popping up every once in a while right here, because she's on my lap, and she just... Oh, you okay? Jump up then! She's on my lap, and she just, like, won't settle down, so she's here. Anyway, we got it sandwiched, so we got these 3 layers all put together with some fabric adhesive. I think my mom and I each got like 2 or 3 rows stitched, actually quilted. So the way that we ended up quilting this was we just ran down the seams of every few of these stripes. I actually used it as an opportunity to have some fun with my sewing machine, kind of get to know it a little bit better, understand what some of the stitches were going to look like and how I was going to use it. Because quite frankly, I needed to have some fun with this project. I hate to say it because I absolutely love spending time with my mom doing this. However, she and I both are at the point where we've been working on this on and off for so long that we just want it to be over. So we are planning on doing at least one more quilt to really gauge to see whether or not this is a hobby that we're going to stick to. I think that we might get the next one quilted, like professionally quilted, so that we don't have to do all of the sandwiching and the quilting, which was way harder than I expected. The piecing was definitely the most fun part, where we actually sewed all of these strips together. Although even then, that wasn't super fun for me. It was a lot of work for me because I was using my old sewing machine, and that old sewing machine just... There's a reason that my mom got me a new one, let's just say that. So I played around with some stitches. I did do every other one. I just did stitch in the ditch, so by all accounts you shouldn't be able to see it, even if I held it up really close, but you definitely can. It's definitely like a first-time quilt. Some areas of it went really, really smoothly and really, really well, and some areas of it didn't. And I just left it because it's my first ever quilt. It's going to be one of those things that we definitely hang on to for forever because it is my very first quilt, but I think it is also just kind of a good thing to have to remind myself that things don't have to be perfect to be nice, to have them in my life. If I've made it, then it doesn't have to be perfect. Which is definitely the case for any of the stitches that I did on my sewing machine that were like slightly more intricate. Anything that required that you keep a very consistent tension throughout, which was most of the, if not all of the fancy stitches that I tried out. Those didn't turn out great. So you have like this section of the quilt right here. So as you can see right here, it gets like really, really close and really, really tight, and then a lot less tight, and this section gets super, super loose. So I was just playing with it, trying to see what worked, trying to get a better understanding of how my machine worked. And I definitely did that. I definitely understand a bit better now, tension on the machine and how important that is, and how I just am really bad at that, apparently. I have a really hard time just letting the machine go and just like guiding the fabric. I always wanted to, pull it through, and sometimes it would get stuck because I don't know if I have the best walking foot, or if it would just get kind of stuck because, that's what happens when you're using a regular machine and trying to quilt 3 layers together. I did have some favorite stitches that I tried out. One of them was actually one of them that was very forgiving when it came to mistakes or tension issues, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it because I can barely see it, and I know it's there. So this right here, it's just kind of like a back and forth almost, so it goes one side and then the other, and it looks almost like hand-stitched a little bit, which I think looks Really beautiful. And then as my very last row, just for fun, and again, you can see very clearly on this row how terrible I am at tensioning this, but it was just for fun, so I added in these hearts. This is one you can definitely see a lot more clearly because I made sure that the hearts were visible on this lighter colored fabric, and I was using brown thread. So yeah, so I just had fun with it because, quite frankly, most of this project has not been fun. We do still obviously need to do the binding, but I need to either Google it, look it up on YouTube, or ask Taylor about how to do it, because I think she might have explained how we were supposed to do it. I think she explained that when she was also showing us how to sandwich it, though, and that was many months ago, so I might need a refresher. I know that you can use bias tape, or you can use, like, a fold-over method, I think. But we're gonna have to see. I'm gonna do a little research. My mom and I will hopefully be doing just the binding off next time, and it'll be the last step, and then we will have finished quilts. So this has been, getting everything sandwiched has been a 2 weekend project. So the first weekend, admittedly, we did get together, and the first thing we did was make homemade apple butter. And then the second thing that we did was doing the quilts. And we ended up having to wash the backing fabric because neither of us had thought to do it beforehand. So we washed the backing fabric, and then we had to iron the backing fabric, and then we had to do all the sticking together, which meant that we only got a couple rows sewed. But then last weekend my mom came over and we used my machine, and we kind of like took turns because it is a little bit exhausting. Both my mom and I have the tendency to go like this while we're sewing away, or like hunched down like that, and that's really, really bad, for our backs and our necks. So we would kind of switch out a little bit here and there, take lots of breaks. I definitely think we did more talking than sewing, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, that is the quilt progress. Hopefully in the next episode, I will have a completed quilt for you guys. Next up, I did finally take out the brioche on these Witchy Vibes socks that I've been working on. These were meant to be done in time for Halloween, and obviously that has come and gone. So I did all of the pulling out and casting back on while I was in a NaNoWriMo prep session, where it was just kind of talking about wellness and making sure that you are also taking care of yourself while you're trying to do this like monumental task of writing 50,000 words in a month, and also, carrying on with your regular life. But yeah, so I have recast it on. I am not doing brioche anymore, although it has a somewhat similar effect. I am just doing corrugated ribbing. I did look up the term for it, and it's corrugated ribbing. And I found a technique to do it that involves just slipping every other stitch rather than holding the yarn and trying to knit purl with 2 strands at once. You just kind of do every other. It does take, twice as long as it takes to do a single row normally. But to me, it's well worth it because I really am not good at holding the yarn like you're supposed to in those cases. And so this is just a whole lot easier for me. I think that if it weren't for the fact that I am still purling one of the rows, so the orange row is still getting purled, if I weren't doing that, I think I could manage it fairly easily. It'd just be, back and forth and back and forth. But because one of the rows is getting purled, and when I purl, I actually lift the yarn up, and then I have to completely let go of the yarn and pick it back up again when I purl. And also with the purl stitches, you have to be really careful not to accidentally put the burgundy yarn in the front, and it was a whole mess. I was having a really hard time with it. So I looked it up online, and I found someone that suggested, slipping every other stitch and then just doing essentially 2 rows for every row that you're doing. Did that make sense? I have no idea. I'm not sure what the snugness factor is going to be on these socks because I've got, all of these carries underneath it. And I know from both experience and from hearing from other knitters that a lot of times it can tend to be a little bit tighter when you're doing stranded knitting like this, or Fair Isle knitting, or color work. I will say that I am very pleased with how it looks. I think it looks beautiful. I really love this. I cast on in just the burgundy, and then I knit a row before I added in the orange, and I really love how that looks. But I guess I am just going to knit one sock and see if it stays up on my leg. That's really what I'm worried about, is also not just that it might be a bit too tight, but that the tension of having this corrugated ribbing will mean that there's no stretch to it. So there's no way that the sock is not like trying to pull in on itself. It's not going to keep itself on your leg. But we'll see. I have obviously loads and loads of progress to go on those, but I did want to update you because of the big change that I made. I do have another new cast on. This is just another Sockhead hat. I actually got a request for this one. My dad wants one for Christmas. My mom informed me that my dad wants one for Christmas. It's definitely one of those projects where I'm like, I kind of wish that you had let me know a little bit earlier, because right now I am in the middle of a lot of projects, and now I have to get this done before Christmas. But at the same time, I mean, at least she let me know in October, as opposed to, 2 weeks before Christmas, which could have been a lot worse. So I've got this burgundy yarn, because my dad specifically asked for a burgundy hat, and conveniently, I had 3 different colors of burgundy in my stash, like 3 different dyers. The other 2 were just a little bit too purple, and I think that this is more what he wants. This is another one of those yarns that I actually have 2 skeins of, because I went through a period where I was convinced that I was gonna knit extra long socks, like knee-high socks, and to knit knee-high socks, generally you need 2 skeins. This would have made terrible sock yarn, by the way. But it is something that I bought when I was visiting in Maine a couple years ago. My husband and I got a cabin through Airbnb, which is the first time that it had ever occurred to me to book a cabin through Airbnb, and I immediately fell in love. That is what inspired us to get the cabin in Gaylord as well. So I love visiting places and getting locally made or locally dyed yarn, which is exactly what this is. It is Jaeger spun. I assume it's pronounced with a y sound and not a j sound. Anyway, it says spinners of natural fiber since 1898, which is really exciting. And this is in the color garnet, and the yarn is super lamb. It says 100% SWT wool, which I am not actually sure what that means. So this has been sitting in my stash for absolutely ages. You can see all of the yarns that I was considering using. But yeah, that is a project that I'm hoping to get done within the next couple of weeks. I kind of just work on it when I need something to work on that is not too mentally engaging. Although honestly, that's most of my projects at this point. Like, I finished the Antler Toque with those cables and everything, and now I just have miles and miles of moss stitch to go, and miles of seed stitch to go on another sweater, and this. And then the only other thing that I have really worked on in the last few weeks is my Schnee cardigan. I am just very slowly working away at the body. I have a tendency to pick this up every, 2 or 3 days, and I will knit 4 to 6 rows on it, and then I will set it down again and while I'm working on something else. But I am slowly chipping away at it. I have a very specific limit as to when I'm going to be done, which is when I run out of yarn. So I've got these left, which again, in case you're new here, I am holding these 2 together to get what was supposed to be like a DK weight, but I think is closer to a worsted weight yarn. And then I have these 2 skeins as well that, again, I'm going to have to hold together. Once I am done with that portion of the body, I also have to knit a ribbing at the very bottom, and I have to add a button band. But I have different yarn for that. I have this burgundy yarn. In case you didn't notice, I have a real thing for burgundy. And we're just going to keep plugging away at that. I am really, really loving it. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's way too big. It is, I think, going to be bigger on me than this sweater, which was meant to be, this Banff cardigan that I knit was meant to be like the biggest thing that I own, that I have in my closet. And I'm pretty sure the Schnee is going to eclipse that. But you can see it's, blanket sized roughly. And so I'll just have another blanket cardigan, basically. That is basically all of the knitting crafty goodness that I have for you guys this week. I did just want to give you guys a little bit of a life update, I guess. Like I said at the beginning, I am working very tirelessly along at NaNoWriMo. I am having a lot more trouble this year than I have had in past years. I am doing a rewrite of the story that I wrote last year for NaNoWriMo, and there is a part of my brain that just is just saying that I need to get it right this time. So obviously, since I'm doing a rewrite, I didn't like what I ended up with last year. And I had meant to go through and edit it throughout this past year, but what I ended up doing is putting that off and just letting the story kind of marinate in my head for probably way too long, and I came up with so many changes that I wanted to make to the story that I had written that I decided to just completely scrap the first version and rewrite the second version, or rewrite a second version. So that has been a little bit of a struggle. We are also somehow still in the middle of renovating our kitchen, and I use the term renovating very lightly because it was not meant to be a kitchen renovation. Basically, I just want my kitchen to be exactly as it was before we had to start making all these repairs. So if you're new to the channel, I have been in process of having our kitchen kind of redone because we had a pipe in the wall in our kitchen and in the ceiling in our kitchen that was part of the sewage system, but we have a 100-year-old house, and so that pipe was also 100 years old. We had to have it replaced. The plumbing was not the hard part, as it turned out, when it came to getting people in to fix the kitchen. It has been 6 months since we started this whole project, and the hardest thing has been getting in a contractor. We did hire one group, and we paid them quite a bit of money, and then they turned out to have completely misunderstood or actively misunderstood what we wanted them to do. They didn't have a permit out, which they were supposed to have, because we do live in a city, and so you have to have a permit if you're going to do any significant work on your house. So we ended up letting those guys go. I do have a family member that has a contracting business, and we asked him to do it, and I was expecting that the wait for that, because he is extremely busy, but I expected the wait for that to be until December if we were lucky, and March if we were not. And I'm not sure if he was just less busy than expected, or if he pushed some things around for us because he's family, and managed to get out here last week. He started working with us last week, and it has been a lot of noise, a lot of isolation, which sounds really strange, but when there is someone in my house doing work, whether that was the plumbers or the handyman that we hired or my uncle, it doesn't seem to matter to my brain. I feel very much like I am isolated to, at the very least, the upstairs, but even more so to this room, the studio room. So that's been really hard on me, on my brain, and also, doing the NaNoWriMo along with that. We are kind of at a stalemate isn't quite the right word, but, that's more or less the gist of it, because we are waiting for inspectors at this point. We did have to also hire an electrician, which, right now we have, I think, the full gamut of permits out on our house, because we've got plumbing, building, and electric. I think that there might be maybe some exterior permits or something that you can get, but yeah, it's a lot. So the electrician is coming later this week, and then we have to wait for the electric inspector. So we are waiting a building inspector, electric inspector. I am trying to be positive, trying to be optimistic, and hoping that we will have the repairs done by Thanksgiving. But I am not going to be absolutely heartbroken if we don't have those repairs done. We have kind of a contingency plan. We have the expectation, at the very least, that we will be in a bit more cramped quarters than you might expect, and just that the kitchen will be a little bit harder to use, so we'll need a little bit more help with people bringing things rather than me just doing all the cooking. In happier news, my husband and I, and this is just such a small thing, but I love it. My husband and I put up Christmas lights the other day, since we try to get that done before it gets too cold. So last year we did not manage to get lights up around the very top of our house, and it was something that I really, really wanted to do, but we do have a very tall house. I mean, it's 2 stories, but it's 100 years old 2 stories, so we have quite high ceilings, and so just trying to get up to that very top gutter was a lot of work. I am not going to go into too much detail because I think my mom might be a little bit frightened by that. My mom is afraid of heights. But we have the lights up. We have some radio stations that are already starting to play Christmas music, so of course that is what is on in our car. So I get that dose of Christmas every time I go into the car. I have an alarm that wakes me up with Christmas music every morning. So I am really just kind of easing myself into Christmas entirely. Like, we're not just going to suddenly have the whole house decorated in Christmas decorations. It's a slow process right now, but I am very, very excited about it. That is everything for this week, guys. Please make sure that if you haven't already, you subscribe and like this video, comment down below. I love to hear from you guys. I do have my contact information in the description down below, just my Instagram account, because that's basically the only place I'm at on social media. But that just about wraps it up. So I will hopefully see you guys again in 2 weeks. And until then, I hope you have an amazing week, an amazing month, an amazing year, and happy holidays. Bye, guys.